I don't know how I'm starting this, but hello everyone. Welcome back to the Educated Collins Bazaar channel or something like that. How you doing? So today we have the patch notes. Bazaar is down right now as I record this, but I wanted to go over the patch notes and just my thoughts on some of the changes and explanations, since these are pretty big, important moments for Bazaar, because it basically shows how they think about balance, how they think about design, what they're working on, what they're preparing. So this is a pretty. It's always pretty important to look at these initial patches just to get a feel of how they're going to develop the game down the line. So we're gonna go through them thought by thought. Something nice I'm doing here is that I want to have like images or showcase all of the card changes or the item changes, just so that newer players will be able to like follow along. Because last time I did the patch, it was kind of hard to, in my opinion, follow, because you didn't really know exactly what cards are or what the items were. I do think it's a lot easier if you've played the game, but some people are still waiting for open beta, so they don't have this like intricate detail of like what this random item is. So hopefully this will be easier this time around. I think there's a lot more people that have been making items and guides, and like there's more ways to know what exactly what item is. So we'll be doing that this patch. But without further ado, let's begin. So, whee. So we do have the patch notes for today. Thank you for the continued participation in the closed beta, as well as your positive feedback these past weeks. While we want to progressively improve server stability and connectivity, because it's been a big issue, we also heard your feedback regarding gameplay balance. Many of today's changes focus on adjusting the power level of Dooley and Pygmalion. So they are noting that Vanessa is probably the weakest hero here in terms of the easy to access combos. I think that's probably true, just because Vanessa has a little bit of skill issue, where some of the most powerful builds are a little bit relying on skills, where some of Dooley and Pygmalion's builds are not relying on skills whatever. They're pretty item dependent, and items are significantly easier to find over the course of a typical run compared to skills. So it does mean sometimes you're playing Vanessa, you're going for the builds. I will say the Poison Vanessa build has been the least skill reliant one, though it does rely on finding ways to increase your poison, which isn't that easy to find, and you can do it through skills much more easily. But there are most of the Vanessa builds, not all of them, that do have a heavy reliance on skills. Now they're also fixing a significant amount of bugs related to Discord, Twitter, and in game, so that's pretty helpful that they have this bug feature. So we know you're eager to learn changes. Without further ado, welcome to the second content patch of the Bazaar closed beta. Enjoy. So we have some new content, which is, I don't think people were fully expecting, but they've added some sparring partner encounter. So this is either an event or either like maybe a PvE match that challenges your build's performance. This is going to be pretty vague until you're actually in the game and you see it pop up, so I'm not really going to dive too much in that. Variety of new skills, which is great. Variety of new level up options, which is fantastic. I also think the level up system was particularly bad, and I mentioned this, but hopefully they've changed that. They do have some over here too. Art has been updated for a variety of counters, so sometimes you have those black and white encounters. Maybe that has been updated to be full color, so that's pretty good. But yeah, let's go into the balance changes in general. The level up reward system adjusted. Right now, I think the level up reward system is kind of bad, because you are so reliant on selling your non-synergistic items, because your level up will factor the items in your stash to ruin you. Especially, I think it's a particularly egregious system, because most of the time you level up due to PvE encounters, and you'll pick up a PvE encounter that is not of your choosing. You'll get a random PvE item, and then that item will affect your level up choices. So let's say you were given a burn item, you're not playing burn build. There is a condition where you pick up that burn item, you level up, and then you're given your burn has +1. And you're just looking at that system like, that is so silly that it works like that, because you don't even get to choose. So hopefully they do say that conditional level up spawning removed, so people don't have to sell unwanted items early anymore to avoid dud level up rewards. And level up will now show 5 items instead of 3. I think there's a big change. 5 instead of 3 gives you a lot more flexibility in figuring out what exactly level up option you want, as well as that the conditional level up spawning is removed, which I think just means that you're not going to be getting you might always get burn, but you have 5 choices, so you have a lot more options to choose. Do I actually want burn or not? So I think people, like high level players, were like always selling their items that they don't want because, oh, if you have a burn item, there's a chance to get burned. We don't want that. If you have a shield item, there's a chance to get shielded. You don't have any shields on your board, then what's the point? So you're always selling these items. Now I think they just removed that completely, but they've given you more options. So I think that's a I think that's an elegant fix. There was a little bit of metagaming and like making sure you had like a ton of weapons if you want weapon stuff. But I do think just removing it and giving you more options is probably a simpler and easier way than this conditional spawning that was maybe messing newer players up as well. So this is probably a better way to do it overall and simpler for them. So I'm happy with that change. And now their level up rewards for level 5 is now fixed to upgrade your leftmost item, same as level 10. I do think this is one of the more powerful ones, upgrade your leftmost item, because you get to choose, right? And some of your core builds might need that heavy level up, and being able to get like an early diamond is very powerful. So I do think this is gives you a nice power spike that you can work for. And I will say the level up upgrade sometimes is level 11. It says level 10, but sometimes the upgrade left mode ends up being level 11. So do pay attention to that. See if it is level 10 or level 11 and adjust. So see if the level 5 is level 6. Just that's my note on reading this. So overall, that's pretty good changes. Bloodsail rating now starts at Crow's Nest Silver tier instead of Crow's Nest Gold tier. Now, I do have a little bit of this image of, we can see now exactly what Crow's Nest is. Crow's Nest is this particular item here. If you've played the game, you intimately remember it because it's a very powerful item. It has your weapons have 75% crit chance. So this is a very early encounter in the game, in my opinion. And sometimes you can just get your weapons have 75% crit chance, plus if you have exactly what weapon, that weapon has lifesteal. Very, very broken if you are playing a weapon build early and you get this, because you just get full crit plus lifesteal. It's really easy to snowball off of this one item. So they are understanding that, and they are removing it a little bit. So instead now it will start its silver tier, which is still 50% crits, which is still a lot, but not as much, and does require you to now buy more copies of it, spend more money to have that extra gold or diamond tier 1. So it's a bit of a nerf, but I think it's helpful. It makes the PvE a little bit weaker, but that doesn't really matter because you're usually winning. So yeah, definitely a good change, I think, because it was definitely an outlier in terms of like the rewards for PvE. There are a lot of those, if I'm going to be honest, that could be adjusted, but let's just start simple, and I think this is a pretty clear one. They increased the rate of combat from the Mountain Pass event. So the Mountain Pass event was the event where it opens up 4 options, and you pretty much always take the income, if I'm being honest. You can get money, you can fight and stuff like that in the risky. But honestly, I haven't really tried the other options too much, besides because income is so strong, and you usually get the Mountain Pass early where it matters, where the income matters, and you can snowball off the extra income. So they've increased the rate of combat, so maybe that might be something you might try, so that, hey, there'll be something to do, play some combat if you want to get some EXP or get a random item to sell. So definitely something to try. I've really been an income abuser here, but maybe this might help give more other choices for players. So yeah. Next up we have sponsorship, cash riches, and regenerative tincture now scales with player level. This was something I really wanted to happen here. So these are some of the weaker events, right, in the game, in my opinion, and it's barely picked. I don't need to see the stats. These events are barely picked because they're very bad compared to some of the events you can do. And once you get into the mid to late game, they're almost always the worst choice of the 3 events. So you feel like you have dead spots where, like, why would I ever pick, this random +1 income, this random gain 3 money. It's not even coins that sometimes you can abuse, or, with loot pair to get more money or anything like that. Synergize with some items. There's none of that. And then the regenerative is +3 regen, which is horrible. And almost never good. Even early game where it's the best is still bad. So now it scales with level, so there's a potential for this to have some use here. So I'm hoping this might help give players more options, because that's really the core of the game. When you want this to be flexible and fun, you want players to always feel like, hey, I have 3 options and they all make sense in some cases. Now, those three events really never made sense in almost every case, and that means you have a horrible event, in my opinion. So now that it scales with player level, there might be some windows where it's like, oh, hey, gain 10 gold. I might pick that, you know? So I think this is a good change and helps. We'll see how strong they scale, and if they make sense still, they might still end up being underplayed, but at least they're thinking about it. And that's really what matters, that they're thinking about these bad events. You don't want them to include bunch of events and they're just permanently bad. You want them to go back, redesign, and come back. So happy with this. Sponsorship available for all heroes. I think some heroes couldn't get the income, which didn't, which sucks because those were the heroes that needed it, right? Like Vanessa, hey, you want to get some income, and you were missing an income event, so it kind of made things hard for Vanessa if you didn't have a good income early game. Deadly Crooner now has a Halle die instead of a yo-yo. So Halle die is 6 speed or 6 speed, multicast 2. So he used to have this is the event here, Deadly Crooner. He used to have a yo-yo. Yo-yo is very abusive in some builds that are not, even Pygmalion can abuse it, right? But yo-yo is one of the more abusive cards. And you can see whenever you use an adjacent item, use this. So it's very easy to just combo these very fast items and then have yo-yo just trigger constantly. And it can really activate some of your combos. So they're recognizing that yo-yo is very abusive, and this is a very easy way to get a yo-yo for non-Pygmalion classes. So they're removing it and giving you a Haladai. I think this is a safe fix to avoid some situations that make it easy to abuse the yo-yo. So I'm okay with it. It's not the biggest deal, but I definitely think there are people that are abusing yo-yo are like, oh, not me, but hey. Yes, that's how it is sometimes. Jules Cafe, no options, no longer cost gold. I was really not yelling, but I was like very confused. Why does this cost gold? Because it doesn't make sense. You're picking this because you're dying, because you have nothing to do. I also think the options are not that strong, so I would buff the options. But this is a good fix. Why are you spending 4 gold to get a temporary buff that doesn't even help you that much? It really didn't make sense to me. Now at least it doesn't cost gold, so now you can pick what you choose. So this is a good fix, or a good start. I still think we could take a look at the options, maybe add another one, but at least they're thinking about it and like thinking about some of the bad events and trying to make them better. Backup defense now scales with players' max health and starts at gold tier. So we can take a look at backup defense here. It is for Pygmalion, Dooley, and Stelly, but she's not a playable character. First time you fall below half health each fight, you double the shields of the shield items each fight. So now it just is based on the max health, and it starts at gold tier. So there's going to be another tier. There was only diamond now, but now you have gold tier, and it scales off your max health. So feels okay. Next up, we have Knife Tricks. It now reduces the weapon cooldown by 5. And when you use it starts at diamond tier. So it used to be gold and diamond, but now it's only diamond, so it's going to be a little bit harder to find. But now it's reduced by 5. Diamond was 6. So a little bit of a nerf for Knife Tricks, pretty much. So, sad to see if you care about that. Next up, we have some Vanessa balance changes, though Vanessa didn't really get the big brunt of changes, but she did get some. So Shipwreck now starts at diamond tier with +1 multicast. So Shipwreck, we could see, is not this one, it's this one. Did I miss? No, I didn't miss. Okay, I just have this item here randomly. All right, so Shipwreck is now only diamond tier. It used to be gold and diamond, and it would be +1 multicast into +2 multicast. Very, very strong for some builds. It was very good for a lot of things. Like aquatic items are super flexible, and multicast is broken. AoE multicast is broken, honestly. All the AoE multicasts are just like, yeah, this is a problem. So yeah, they're removing some of that. They're saying, hey, multicast is really strong. Players are abusing it, and it beats everything else, right? Because essentially you're getting 3x the value of other comps. Right, they are triggering 1 time, you're triggering 3 times. Like it's hard to deal with the scaling of that. So they have in the game seen players abuse this and win with it very easily over other builds. They're removing it, they're making it diamond. So it's not only diamond, there's no gold. So and you don't have +2 multicast, you don't have +1 multicast. Big change. we'll see if it means a lot of less people are playing Shipwreck, but it's still pretty good. AoE multicast is just a very strong effect to have, so we'll see if people still want to use it for other combos or if it just falls down the wayside, kind of like the scrappers. So I do think they want to like go back and make sure like cards like the Space Scraper are not under or never played anymore, right? Because we don't really see the property builds anymore. People are doing other things because the property build is kind of weak. They fixed all of the changes, but they did so many changes, and they're all pretty much nerfs that now property build is really rarely ever seen. And if you do see it, you beat it pretty easily. So hopefully they'll go back and readjust after time has passed. I think it's fine for now to just have like, oh, this was the broken thing, now it's not really played, and then we'll come back after a month or two. But for now, Shipwreck, big change, I think it's fine. Next up, we have Chimera. So Chimera is no longer a tool, which is kind of bad because there's good tool synergies that are pretty strong, and now slows for 1 second, down for 2 seconds. So Chimera was a Vanessa item, but you could find it in other places. But it did slow 2 items at the base, I think, down. Or was it? Well, you usually get yeah, I guess it slowed 1, but you usually get it silver for some reason. So it would slow an item down for 2 seconds when you upgrade it. Now it slows an item down to 1 second. So kind of a pretty big nerf. The difference between 1 and 2 seconds is pretty massive. And what we were abusing was multicast on this. So you would have like a gold or diamond version. It would slow 4 items for 2 seconds base plus multicast, and there are ways to increase the slow effect. So this could be like slow 4 items for 4 seconds, multicast 3. So it was like, and then it could still trigger afterwards. It's not like one-time use, right? So it could still trigger. So you were like, this alone was pretty much slowing your whole board. So it was very powerful when you have those synergies, but they're toning it down a little bit, reducing the slow. You have to do a little bit more work. I think it's fine. This was a very good item. It does look a little bit weak to me now. Maybe I would up the cooldown or something, but you know, it still has that really good ability to trigger synergy. So even with this nerf, sometimes it was just used as a synergy trigger activator since it starts to start a fight. But we'll see how people adjust with this change. Next up, we have the Swashbuckler. So now these are just the enchantments for Swashbuckler. The Deadly now provides double crit chance, and then the Shiny now provides double damage, heal, and shield bonus. So we can see the Swashbuckler. It was adjacent items that are gaining extra crit chance, and then they also have bonus damage, heal, or shield equal to the crit chance. So now you have the enchantments that are doing a little bit more or a little bit different effect. I don't remember exactly what the enchants were. I could look it up, but I didn't, so please forgive me. But yeah, they did change the enchantments for Swashbuckler. Next up, we have the dually changes. So all of the dually starting cores now start at 7 seconds. All of them basically started at 8, except for the haste or the friend core, which started at 7, which felt weird because the friend core was one of the best cores, and it also had the lowest cooldown. And it also didn't have those like left to right mechanics that a lot of the other cores had to do. There was only buffing friends, so that was like its weakness. You had to like commit to a friend build, but it did feel very good in practice. Now they all start at 7 seconds, which does not decrease on upgrades. So some of the cores, when you level them up, would get faster. The regular core was one of the bigger ones that did that, but there were some inconsistencies apparently. So now they're just making everything 7. I do think the core has like some speed abuses because of the what's it called, the scrap metal, but we'll go into that when it comes because it's up in here. Now Robotic Factory now starts at Diamond Tier with +1 multicast. So Robotic Factory AoE multicast, very strong, very broken. Once again, they're doing the same thing they're doing to Shipwreck. They're only making it Diamond Tier with your friends of +1 multicast. So I mean, it was just very strong. AoE multicast is just always very strong. So they're looking into data. A lot of wins are just Robotic Factory plus friends or Shipwreck plus aquatics. So they're like, okay, let's tone that down. So yeah, just +1 multicast, only diamond, still strong, still good, probably. Just Mama Sore is just very, very strong, and it's a friend, and you multicast the eats is just abusive. So yeah, still probably pretty good, but definitely not as like Omega broken this scales into infinity. So this will nerf some of the dually builds, and I think it's fair. Next up, we have the combat core. Why are you still here? This is like 5 parts away. Combat core was one of the best cores, and another pretty powerful win condition. The change here was that it counts as a vehicle in addition to be a core of a weapon. So this one is a buff, and I don't understand this because this thing is very good already. Like, I mean, I get it in terms of like thematically, it's a vehicle. You put your core on there, so yeah, it works. I actually get it, but like in terms of like balance, this card is already incredibly good. You usually get it when it's 25, and every time you trigger something, it will gain stats. It'll just get stronger and stronger. You can make it be very defensive, very offensive, depending on where you position it, and it can be your win con. So once you get this can be your win con. It has a 4-second cooldown, which is incredibly fast for this type of effect. Plus, you can make it faster if you want. If you build around it, you can make the cooldown even shorter. So this thing can just be very fast, game-winning, scaling, just a very, very good item. So adding vehicle just adds more synergies, makes it easier to find. It's essentially like just a buff, honestly. There's no like, if this thing is a vehicle, it's a lot slower. It increases the cooldown by 2 seconds. There's no hate item like that. So you just have this like, here, this is easier to find. So Julie's pretty happy to open up some synergies. Not too many, but it does open up some synergies. So yeah, big buff for combat core. I think we'll be seeing more of that over this patch because it didn't get nerfed at all. And 4-second cooldown, a big activator is very strong. So yeah, really good card. Gets a little bit better. So happy for the core. Happy for dually lovers out here. Next up, we have critical core. Deadly now gives 50 crit instead of doubling its crit damage. So don't know if I have critical core somewhere. Here's ballista twice. Do not have the critical core, but it gives 50 crit instead of doubling the crit. Critical core is one of the dually cores, so it's instead of doubling its crit, it starts with like, it gives itself base 15 crit, and you can increase it as it levels up. Now you get plus 50 crit, which I think is just better because doubling the crit is usually less, in my opinion, than the 50 base. And pretty much 50 base is going to be double your crit most of the time. It's going to be double the crit or better, right? Because if you have 20 crit, you get 50 at 70 instead of 40. So it's pretty much always a buff to critical core. So I think this is helpful for critical core. If you were enchanting this, you're like, oh, why didn't I get the 50 crit? Like, I think it was weird enough that felt like a bug, so I'm happy they changed it. Ballista. So this thing has been showing up in my wiki. Thank you for the wiki for adding this so that we can actually like follow along. But yeah, it's a dually item. It wasn't really being played. It was very weak, and it didn't really. It was pretty slow in its scaling, honestly. So that was kind of the issue. It was weak base and slow scaling. So why would you pick it? And it was also fairly slow with the 6-second cooldown. Now they've upped they've reduced the cooldown down to 5 seconds from 6, which is helpful. And they've increased the base damage up to 20 from 10, as well as probably the scaling has increased too. So there might be a chance to play this. It might scale better. So this is pretty good. We only know the base scaling, right? You can see in the wiki they had question marks because the game isn't out, so we can't update. But hopefully it's a little bit better. Hopefully people might play it. Right now, I really wasn't seeing play. You can definitely tell the things were getting buffed, just weren't seeing play, which is a good way of doing things. Hopefully, the scary part is if you're only not seeing play because there are just way better options that are overshadowing everything. Kind of like some of the Pygmalion builds that we are seeing now. They weren't being played before because the scrap scraper build was just overshadowing them. But they were also broken builds. They were just not as easy and as broken as 1,000 damage in 2 seconds, or 100,000 damage in 2 seconds. So yeah, what are you gonna do? Weak point detector damage buff increased to 3, 6, 9, 12 from 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a pretty big buff to this. This was your weapons gain more damage over the fight, and when you slow, you charge this. So it was just very slow I would say in the charging, like 3, 6, 9, 12 is just not a lot. Well, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it was not a lot. 12 damage is pretty good, and when you slow your charge, so if you can find a slow scaling, you can actually scale your attack pretty fast. So I can definitely see this being better as an option. So it's something to try. A new build, maybe this can be one of your carries, but we'll have to see. But yeah, definitely a good idea. Next up, we have Camp Snail. Now has gained slow an item for 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 seconds at 6 cooldown, and the poison and slow is reduced to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Camp Snail was a dually item where it would be like pufferfish, except it triggers on slow instead of haste. So it didn't have an effect before, I believe. It just would, every time you slow, you would poison, essentially. But now it has its own effect. So now you can buy it and have it trigger its slow. It's also a friend, so now it can be multicast by Robotic Factory. And it now has this of, I can buy this and it's not dead. Because before, if you bought this and you didn't have any other way of slowing, it doesn't do anything ever. Now, it can actually slow itself, trigger poison, so it's a lot better. It gives you more options to just play this and then not feel like, oh, this is just a waste of money because I don't have another easy slow activators. Because slow activators are not that common, that early, that are good, that you really want to play just for play. There's like LED lights, probably, or one of the better ones. Which triggers on the core, if you don't know what that is. But, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not going to play a Camp Snow for LED lights because it's early game and my core isn't that fast. But now you might try it and see it because the Camp Snow triggers on itself. Whew, this is a long patch, guys. Oh my god, this is going to be like an hour video. Jesus. All right, next up we have, maybe, I don't know if I can go faster. When you have shield effects, now you deal damage equal to its shield tier. So Armadillo was a dually item. It was pretty weak. Didn't really scale that much because it had like 5 base shield. So it would just deal damage over to its like 5 damage when you shield. It was like no damage at all. Now it deals damage equal to a shield, which I think makes a lot more sense. And now you can actually run this and feel like, oh, this is like my win con. So there's a chance you might play a Armadillo shield build with dueling now, so I think that's helpful because this wasn't really a viable card currently. So good on them. Pari condition now starts at Diamond tier. So Pari was one of the best freeze items for dually because whenever you use the core, you would freeze an item for like 1 to 2 seconds, right? Depending on this tier. Now it's only Diamond tier, so probably it's either going to be Diamond tier 1 second or Diamond tier 2 seconds. My guess is Diamond tier 1 second because they want to nerf the card, right? So if you make it Diamond tier 2 seconds, it's basically not any different if you got it, if you had a diamond before. So probably going to be Diamond tier 1 second. But yeah, it would freeze on a 5-second cooldown, and every time you use the core, it'd freeze again. So late game cores were activating like very fast, right? So it's also a friend, so Robotic Factory just multicast. So it was just incredibly good for perma freezing. So they're probably nerfing that. So makes sense to me. Perma freeze is broken in almost every build. So if you can find a way to add that, it's really strong. And this was one of the easier ways to do that. So makes sense. Next up, we have Omega Ray. Now starts at silver tier instead of gold tier. So Omega Ray was the burn. When you use a core or another ray, you give all your items plus burn. So burn is something I love playing, but it loses a lot unless you have a really good skills to supplement burn. Is usually been my issue. If you want to play a burn build, you need really good skills. Now compared to poison, where poison you need like 1 good skill and that's and a pufferfish and you're done. Your build is Astrolobe and you're done. The build is correct. But here, burn you need a little bit more. Its skills a little bit stronger than poison. If you can skill as fast as poison can skill, it skills better than poison, but it's hard. It also loses to shield builds where poison just kills shield builds unless they're playing shield slam builds, then they'll kill you first, usually faster. But yeah, generally Omega Ray, they're changing it, so we don't actually know what the stats are because they're adding an extra tier. So it might be that it starts at 4, but I find that like that's incredibly broken probably. But they're just making an extra tier for the Ray. Some of the Rays start at bronze or silver, so it's weird that this one only starts at gold. So that's probably the issue, because sometimes when you're trying to make a Ray build, which is not that common, but you can do it. It's hard to find all of the other rays, so adding this starting at silver makes it easier to find, which means that the other rays also synergize better because the rays will trigger their extra effect once you use another ray or the core. So making them more accessible makes it easier for you to find all the rays and play a ray build. Makes sense. Next up, we have Pulse Rifle. Now it starts with Bronze tier instead of Silver tier. Now deals a little bit more damage. Its cooldown has been increased, but its multicast effect now doubles as a friend is the only friend. So when it comes to Pulse Rifle, it was +1, +2, but if you had a friend, you'd get multicast. So now it has to be your only friend. I don't know why they like only friend synergies. There's a couple of dually items that get stronger with your only friend. They want you to be alone. They want you to be on a toxic relationship with your one friend. And it's your only friend. It's the only thing holding you together. I don't get it. But yeah, Pulse Rifle is one of those cards where if you have that one toxic friend that is keeping you away from everyone else, it will get stronger. So, sure, I don't mind it. I haven't really tried Pulse Rifle too much, so I don't have too much of an opinion on it. But it looks like a pretty good card if you're playing like a weapon core and you can scale it up. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, we have Power Drill. Power Drill now deals more damage and also triggers when you haste, slow, freeze, poison, or burn. It used to not trigger through any of that. So this card almost never get to play it because it was bad. It started at 10 damage, which was horrible, and it burns yourself. And so often, if I want to play this, I have Bird Synergy, and I'm playing this, it's like burn yourself 9 every time it triggers. And I'm just like, I can't do that to myself. Like this gets faster and I burn myself 9. Weird. But now that it triggers when you haste, slow, freeze, poison, or burn. So now it doesn't necessarily have to be like a burn build where you're like, oh, this might be working. You can do it in a haste build, a freeze build. Like it's gonna be so much easier to get this to charge or wait, it's charged instead of reduced cooldown. Oh, okay. So it used to have a different ability. When it would trigger, it would get faster, essentially. So it'd go from 10 seconds down to 9, down to 8, down to 7, down to 6, up, down to 1, right? And it was when you haste, right? You'd go down, triggered all the way down to 1, and then you would try to go on with the drill, right? So now they're changing it where you can do slow, freeze, poison, burn. There's a lot of activators to do that to just trigger lots of these haste or freeze or slow activators, and then you charge. So usually probably diamond is where you want to use this because charge 2 seconds on some of these procs are very easy, and so you just do a lot of damage with the drill. So there's definitely probably going to be power drill builds that are activated now. So I think this is a cool way of making this playable because it almost never saw any play, and I think that's helpful. Like cards that have like 1% pick rate or like 5 or something like that pick rate and didn't ever win. I think these are cards that need to be changed, and Power Drill to me was definitely something that fit that criteria. So happy to see this change. We'll see if it's good. I can't tell you it's good because I haven't tried it or seen other people try it, but it's a change in the right direction, and that's what I want to see. Next up, we have Monitor Clock. It now starts at Bronze tier. So Monitor Clock was basically Pufferfish as well. When you haste, you poison. It's basically Pufferfish for dually. But it also had the ability to haste an item, so that's kind of cool now. I don't think it had the haste before, right? So I think it's something they added. Let me check. Where are you? Power Drill. Monitor Lizard now starts at Bronze. No. So I guess it was already hasting an item for 2 seconds, but then they added a bronze version. So Pufferfish has a bronze version, so they're adding Monitor Lizard, giving a bronze version. Perfectly fine with that. We'll see if it's broken, because Pufferfish is broken. But Monitor Lizard, we haven't really seen the dually abusing things because they don't have like Super Water Wheel or some of the Astro Lave or any of that. So we'll see. Next up, we have Like Clockwork. Now this is a skill There's also, so we have the Wikia. We also have another website. We have How Bazaar. If you want to take a look at it, it has all the skills. I found this today by doing this video that this website existed, and it's great. Look at this. Like clockwork, you can see the tiers, you can see the all of the abilities, you can see the items, monsters. It's very good, honestly. So well done here. So we can see like clockwork, they have changed it to give your weapons damage and deals double damage if a core that's a weapon. So I don't think they've updated this, but now it has given your weapons damage, and now you have double damage to core as a weapon. So we'll see how good it is for Dooley, but yeah, nice to see the website at least. If you didn't know about it, now you know. Next up, we have Forklift. Now it deals 50 100 damage from 30 to 60 for each item on the left of it. So this was just like a scaling issue. 30 to 60 wasn't that much, so you really didn't feel good about Forklift. You still don't feel good about Forklift because cooldown 10 seconds is pretty bad. And hasting the items to the right of this is still pretty weird because you have to wait the 10 seconds before you start getting the haste option. So it's just a slow item, and slow items like the Vanessa's arrow, bow and arrow, stuff like that, the 10 seconds, even the sniper rifle, like you in the late game you just die because most builds get their combos off before 10 seconds, and by the time you get the 10 seconds, and keep in mind, slow is very common. Keep it like, right? You can get perma-slowed. So things like 10 seconds, in some matchups, is 20 seconds before it triggers once, and then you get the haste for 4 seconds, and then you have a 20-second wait again. You're dead. You're dead, guys. So cooldown is very important. That's why things like the combat core, 4 seconds, yes, you can make that work. 10 seconds, ooh, you're in trouble. So even, I don't think this is enough, but maybe we'll see. But I'm not too hopeful that this is enough to change things. But next up, we have the kinetic cannon. Now gains 10, 20, 40 damage from 20, 30, 40 for the fight when you use a small item. So this is kind of a nerf. I don't know if once again, this is the same 10-second problem. Yes, 10 seconds you can make work, and you can make it radiant, right, so it doesn't get slowed or whatever, but they are nerfing this card. I didn't really have a problem against kinetic cannon builds. Once again, 10 seconds is a big issue, but yep, it does scale a little bit slower if you have the bronze version, but most of the time you're not gonna most of the time, you're going to have a better version than bronze, especially now that you have the choice to choose what you're upgrading on level 5. So if you pick this early, you just choose this to upgrade. So I don't really think it's a big issue, but yeah, now you're only getting 20 damage instead of the 30 that you were before. So kind of a nerf. I mean, I don't know if it needed a nerf, but maybe the stats were saying that kinetic cannon was winning games. I didn't experience that, but maybe people were just winning with kinetic cannon. Railgun has been redesigned and now deals 100 or 200 damage and is charged 1 to 2 seconds when you use the core. So we can take a look at Railgun here, and it used to gain damage when you use the core, I believe. So every time you use the core, it would gain damage, but now when you use the core, it charges, and it has multicast too. I don't know if this is better. I mean, I guess it is better because charging is very strong, in my opinion. Being able to shoot faster. I'm jinxes in my head. Sorry. Is just a good thing to do. So if you have a very fast core, I guess this can work, right? If your core is triggering every 2 to 3 seconds, then you could turn this thing down to 4 or 6 seconds, which is a little bit better. Especially if the core is giving haste or charging or increasing the charge. So there's a word this can be strong. The old version was kind of good because it just scaled really fast and it could be a win condition, but it also wasn't crazy strong either. So I could see this and see how it works. So either way, I'm down to try it at least and see how it feels. The old one wasn't nothing was really better than Combat Core or Mama Sword, and I don't think this is really going to compete with that, but maybe it's another option if you get it early and you don't really have anything else to do. Next up, we have Scrap Metal now starts a gold tier. Now, Scrap Metal used to have the a silver tier, and it would just upgrade the core. And let me tell you, once I saw what the gold and the diamond tier versions did, I was like, wow, I've been omega baited by this silver tier scrap. They don't tell you what the upgrades are. You know, you have to kind of figure it out yourself, right? And I went down to one life. I picked diamond item. I got a diamond scrap metal, and I was like, wait, it lowers your cooldown. This is crazy because the combat core has a 4 second base, right? So this can upgrade the combat core and your regular core. You know, sure, that's pretty good, but you can get your combat core down to 2 seconds. 2 second activated for a combat core. It's so crazy strong. So there is some really good stuff you could do with a scrap metal if you want to do that. But even on your regular core, like cooldown reduction on your regular core is just very strong. So this is just a very good item. And now you don't have the silver tier, you just have gold and diamond, so you're not gonna get baited by the silver tier. Though it does mean it's harder to find, right? So you used to what you wanted to do is just have the silver tier and then find another one and upgrade to gold and then use it, right? But now you just look for it in gold and diamond, and then if you find it, then you can reduce your core cooldown. So pretty good. Next up, we have the beta ray bill. It's not beta ray bill, but just the beta ray. It only freezes small items for 2 to 4 seconds, and when you use another core or the ray, it will gain haste for a particular amount of time. It's honestly one of the weirder cores because freeze is so strong, but the haste effect isn't that broken. But I guess you couldn't do when you use a core or another ray freeze again because that's broken. That's what obviously that it probably did that initially and then it got nerfed in before release. I bet you that's what they did before and they were like, oh, that's crazy. Let's nerf this. So I bet I could that sounds exactly like how the designers would do it, right? When you use another raid, this freezes again, right? So they didn't do that. Now it gains haste. It always felt like a weird raid, but it is a freeze raid, so can be pretty good. So we'll see. Only freezing small items. I really didn't feel like it needed that weakness. You wanted to be able to freeze, like a lot of times large items are their win cons, right? So not being able to hit the large items means that their win cons don't get frozen. So weird. I wonder if since it's small items now, if this could be charged instead of haste. That would be my if this thing feels weak, then maybe make it charge instead of haste. But for now, I'm okay with it. I don't think people are really playing too much Ray builds, so Rays could use a buff, but freeze is something you want to be scared of buffing, so I'm down to kind of leave it, but I would be interested in seeing it on charge instead of haste later down the line. Next up, we have the Pygmalion changes. So Pygmalion change to me is the best hero because it just it auto wins some builds. There's some stuff that you can play with Pig that just beats all Vanessa stuff. Except for the poison haste, which is why people are playing poison haste. But the ammo stuff, you run out of ammo. The aggro stuff, you just don't have enough damage to get through the shields and stuff like that. So it just had a lot of easy wins into some matchups. But yeah, hopefully they're nerfing some of the stuff. We'll see. Luxury Tent multicast no longer scales to +2 a diamond. So Luxury Tent was when you die, you come back to life, and now your heals have +1 multicast. Diamond would be +2 multicast, and that was really good with Bird and it's always Bird. Everything synergized with Bird and Yo-Yo. That was always the problem. Bird and Yo-Yo. But yeah, so no more +2 multicast. So this is the same strategy. AoE multicast broken, even on Luxury Tents, which is honestly the weakest of the three, but still good enough to remove. So makes sense to me. Next up, we have the Bird. Everyone is complaining about the Bird. The Bird was crazy. It multicasted 7 times sometimes with 3 properties plus Yo-Yo. It was doing too much. Plus Vineyard. It was healing 50 triggers. Anyways, they're lowering that. So they are upping the heal, which honestly, to my opinion, doesn't really matter. The base heal you can abuse very much. You could increase the heal very easily with the I don't remember what the event is, but it gives you plus 20 heal to all your heal items, right? So you could just choose that. But so the healing increase isn't that important, but its multi-cast effect is now +1 multicast, so +2 multicast. I think this makes a lot of sense. I do think Diamond could be +2 multicast. However, it's fine. You know, make it +1 and permanent. That's not the end of the world. So yeah, Bird, they nerfed the Bird. I'm very okay with this. The Bird was too good, so makes sense to me. Now, this has +1 multicast for each property you have. Yeah, makes sense to me, so I'm down for that. Next up, they're changing the Beehive. So Crip would always complain about, well, no, maybe not complain, but Crip would always say, hey, Beehive is bugged. It uses all the busy bees, it should only use one. And everyone's like, okay, Crip, I trust you. And now they've done it. So who knows if Crip is the one orchestrating this change from the shadows? You know? I'm not throwing any any conspiracies out there. But yeah, they're saying it's now what Crib says. Crib now it no longer uses all the busy bees on weapon use. I honestly think it wasn't that bad. It was like a fun meme build if your opponents were playing meta weapons. But once again, it's huge Vanessa hate because Vanessa is the main hero that uses mostly weapons. And if you're playing Vanessa and your opponent has busy bee, you instantly get murdered. There is no chance for you because this busy bee just triggers and you get hit for 1,000 and you have no health because you're playing Vanessa, so you just instantly die. So I'm kind of okay with it because it's hurting the weakest hero in my opinion, Vanessa weapon. So now it only just uses one busy bee on each enemy weapon use, which is still fine. So now you can just run Beehive and a busy bee and feel fine about it. But I didn't mind the use all of them, but I think this is fine as well. So whatever, you know, seems fine to me. Brass Knuckles second effect now has this as double damage instead of multicast. One mod has +40 or more damage. Honestly, Brass Knuckles is not really something I use too much. It just didn't scale that well, and Pygmalion has way better options in my opinion. But double damage might be cool. But even if this is Diamond, this is just okay. So what they're doing is this just baseline has double damage, so you might be able to play it early. Because what it was before was you needed 40 health. So if you don't have the 40 attack requirement, then maybe you can just play this. So maybe it's fine. If this has double damage is no, you don't need 40 or more damage because it was very hard to get 40 or more damage early. So you really couldn't buy this unless it was already like Diamond. And then if you have Diamond, like if you're spending 32 or 16 gold for this, you're kind of like, I don't want to do that for 40 damage. Like who cares? So now I do think it has a chance because you can buy it early and scale it. And maybe it feels better. Lupe starts at gold tier. Lupe is one of the best items in the game, man. Your small items have +1, 2, 3 sell value. You are making so much money with this. This thing over the course of the run has given me upwards to 100+ gold by buying this early. So and you just upgrade this and it's like, oh, this is so much money. I go to Gumballs. I'm gaining 30 gold. Like what? Or you know, like yeah, well 30 gold with some of the other items that give you money, like trader and stuff like that. So like it's like what is this? Like it didn't make sense. So yeah, nerfing it so that it's harder to find early, I think is an absolutely correct way of doing it. I'm surprised that this is still +2, +3 sell value. I would assume this is +1, +2. Obviously the game isn't fully out yet. Maybe it's out now, but I do think this should be +1, +2. But yeah, making it hard to find absolutely makes sense to me. This card was broken for sure. So yeah, seems reasonable. Next up, we have golf clubs. Cooldown increased from 7 seconds to 7 seconds from 6, so that's a golf club nerf. Golf club was definitely one of the bigger abusive items in Pygmalion builds. Early golf clubs just breaks you down. Now, I still think this is still very good because it just scales, right? Like whether it goes 7 seconds or 6 seconds, Pygmalion's builds can usually survive. Like that's something intrinsic to Pygmalion. They just have a lot of high life because arms trader is broken. Honestly, that's the reason, among other things. But that's one of the main reasons. But yeah, you can survive, and whether it goes off in 7 seconds or 6 seconds, you're still scaling with heal builds. But Bird has been nerfed. Ooh, sorry guys, I hit my mic. Ooh, I hope that didn't ruin your day. But Bird has been nerfed. Some of the other tents has been nerfed. Multicast has been nerfed, and the cooldown is slower. So that all together might mean you might be able to rush a Pygmalion now before he whacks you across the head with his golf club. So maybe this is enough. It might be, but Pygmalions are pretty resilient, and they're not made for war, boring, like that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll see how it does, but I think it's a good change in the right direction. Doesn't kill the build, which I think has been a big issue. Like Scraper, they just killed the build, right? This one, I would say the build isn't killed, but it is weaker, which is important. Crook's damage now and damage bonus is reduced from 10-20-40 from 10-20-50. I don't really. I mean, this is usually the multicast with Yo-Yo. So this was like a fun or a meta build that Pygmalions were running. They're running Crook with the flail that would attack 3 times, and then they'd have a Yo-Yo next to the flail. So, and then they would all gain plus 40 damage or plus 50 damage at diamond tier, and they would just smack you across the head with these gigantic flails that were also triggering Yo-Yo. Yes, it was very good-ish. I didn't love it. I liked other builds, but people were doing it, and I saw so many of this. So maybe they were like, oh, this is working very well, and they nerfed it. So the diamond is a little bit worse, but the bronze and silver is still pretty much the same. So it's not super bad, or it's not changed in the early game, but it does mean if you have diamond, it's a little bit worse. So I didn't really do this build, but I saw it a lot, and it did do some work, and it was very annoying. So yeah. Next up, we have Caltrops. Now start to diamond tier. So Caltrops was when your enemy uses an item, you deal damage to it. So it could be very good into some matchups, especially if you could scale the Caltrops. The biggest issue was Caltrops has low base damage, but if you're able to up the damage, maybe with the Crook, right now you have a little bit more damage, and you were able to counteract some of the builds, especially if you have that high health or that high shield or anything like that. So Caltrops now just only diamond, so a lot of people are doing some busted stuff with the Caltrops. So we'll see how it is. I will say it does make the Void Golem a little bit more money for you. If you kill the Void Golem and get the Caltrops, now you have the diamond version, I assume, and you can sell it for more money. So that's something. We're reaching here, but yeah. Beast of Burden is damage bonus has been reduced to 10, 20, 40, 80 from 10, 25, 50, 100. So a Beast of Burden was an item for Pygmalion. When you buy other items, it gains damage. So Pygmalion has a lot of money. You can buy a lot. So there were a lot of people gaining like huge Beast of Burdens with thousands of attack. I've seen like, I think I saw one, but this guy was definitely high rolling. He had like 9,000 attack on his Beast of Burden, and I was like, "Damn, dude, what have you been eating?" So yeah, definitely can scale crazy because it doesn't have that like strict requirement of like small items or whatever, or weapons that some of the other scalings does. You're just like, yeah, if you buy items, you get stronger. So if you can make this early diamond, it's still really good. I wouldn't say it's like much worse. And now you have another way of upgrading, right? You have something to keep in mind now is that you have the extra choice of level up on level 5 to upgrade an item. So all these things that are scaling, that scale might actually be scaling better because you are able to choose it to upgrade early. So even though this feels like a nerf, due to the changes in the game, it might be much easier to get diamond. And because of that, it actually might be like a better item to pick up. So even though it got nerfed, I still think like there's potential here. It scales pretty well anyways. And early diamond is better than like gold for most of the game. So pretty good. Next up, we have the balcony. Now, balcony is one of probably the more bugged items in the game before. Hopefully they fixed it, right? But it used to trigger in game or like out of combat, right? So balcony, if we look, the property left of this has double value in combat and has its cooldown used with 10, 20, 30%, whatever, right? The most important part was the double value in combat. It would trigger out of combat. So what you could do every time is that the the properties you'd buy, you can sell for the original price. And that is already very good. But there were some times I got a shiny balcony once, and it would be triple value in combat, but it was also triple value out of combat. So I could buy every property, sell it for. I was just ripping off the market every time I bought a property. I'd sell for 1.5x, right? I buy something for 48. I sell it for 72. You know, that kind of thing. Like, what? I was buying for 12, selling for 18. Like, what is this? Free money. And there are some merchants that only sell basically properties, right? Pole selling large items is pretty much all properties. I just buy a shop and I sell it right back to them for, for exorbitant amounts. It was crazy stuff. So, yes, I'm happy they fixed this. This card was too problematic. One of the best dually cards because you could just get infinite money or just had a lot of flexibility in your money. And there was things like Fixer Upper, right? You buy it for 6, you hold it for 3 days, it's diamond tier, you find a balcony, you sell that thing for 72, like or 48. Like what? What is this? Like it's crazy good. So definitely happy they fixed that. So thumbs up to me. Next up we have the Giant Ice Club. So now it changed the ability when an item gains freeze, it charges for 1 to 2 seconds, and it changed from when your enemy has a frozen item, this deals double damage. So frozen item, a signet ring. Where is my Giant Ice Club? Here you are. So it would deal 50 to 1,000 damage, and then every time you would go above half health, you'd freeze an item for 100 seconds, so you basically kill an item. So it's pretty good. And then when your enemy has a frozen item, this deals double damage. But now where are you? Now it has when any item gets frozen, you charge this. So I think that's probably better. Honestly, I think that's better because this means that if you have a freeze build, this can be your win condition because it's charging, and then you're hitting them for 50 or 1,000. Pa, right? Some builds only have like a couple thousand health. So if you're freezing all the time, then you can really make this your win condition. So kind of I think I'm happy with this change versus a double damage. Just charge is very strong, and you want to be giving these slow items, these 9-10 second items, a way to charge. So pretty happy with that. So and it's charged 2 seconds. Like that's pretty good if you have a really good freeze build. So yeah, happy with that. Then we have Signet Ring. Oh, I skipped Signet Ring. That's why it was like that. I was like, why is Signet Ring here? It's because I skipped it. So Signet Ring now starts at silver tier instead of gold tier. I think this makes sense. This was not a gold tier base item. It wasn't that good. It's just like it gives you +1 income, but you're playing Pygmalion, so you have 24 gold already in the way I play at least. And then at the start of each hour, you gain 10 health. Like, that's decent. That's why you buy it. But 10 health isn't the game changer. Over the course of a day, you may be getting like 50 health. Not the end of the world. So I think you can definitely make this silver base and not feel too scared about it. Next up, we have Endurance. Now, Endurance is a skill. Now it gives your heal. It used to give. We can see the old one here, right? Your heal items have plus heal equal to half the damage of your highest damage item. That's absolutely crazy because you would be running golf clubs, and golf clubs just scales permanent item, right? So your heal items would gain like 500 heal, 1,000 heal. Like, so you couldn't ever out heal the Pygmalion because this endurance is giving their bird that triggers 5 times or 7 times, usually 5, 1,000 heal per trigger. So you try to deal with it with Vanessa, you're trying to kill, and then this Pygmalion just heals up your 6,000 birds like nothing. And you're looking at the game like, why? Why is this a skill that they can pick one copy and win the game off of, that kind of thing. So yeah, I do think this was very broken in the way people were playing their builds. So now it gives you a flat buff. When you use a weapon, it starts a gold tier. 20 health per the fight when you use a weapon. It's kind of like the shield. So the shield has the same thing where it's like, when you use a weapon, you gain 20 shield. And that's very good. That's a very good item. So I think Endurance will still be a very good item. It's just not like, you gain 1,000 shield over the course of 1,000 heal for your bird that's triggering 5 times. So yeah. Good change. That's all I'm saying. Good change. Next up, we have Vineyard. It's been redesigned. So Vineyard was the bird's buddy. It would just trigger every time you use any item. It would trigger your heal. So very good for golf clubs. Very good for bird that triggers 5 to 7 times. So now they've changed it. At the start of the hour, when you use item heal equal to the item's value, they've changed that. They haven't fixed it in the wiki yet, but now we have it heals one, 2, or 3 times its value when you use an item. So now the question is it still just triggering like before, or is it triggering, or is so? My question is, this is not super clear to me. Is it like when you use bird, will bird trigger and then Vineyard will still trigger and trigger 1 to 3 times its value when you use an item, or is it you trigger bird and then bird will trigger itself, like give extra value, extra heal value to the bird based on the value of the bird? So I don't know exactly what it means. It might be the bird will trigger extra heal based on the bird value instead of you're getting the extra proc. So if it's doing that to nerf, because it means you're not double triggering for golf clubs and Krukri, basically. And if it's just triggering more value, then it's probably better. But I'm guessing it's a nerf, but I will have to see. So I'm not super clear, so I'm not going to go too deep on that. But there's a good chance they've nerfed Vineyard. You know, that's the takeaway. We'll see for in the actual game. Landscraper, which is the other version, kind of the same thing. Anytime you use an item, it'll show equal to the item value. So we'll see once again. Is Landscraper the one triggering, or is it buffing the trigger of the other item? That's the difference here. Meaning, like, are you getting double procs per bird, or is the bird only triggering a bigger heal? That's the difference. I don't know what it is. We'll have to see in game. If it's double procking, it's still kind of the same as before and it's still good. If it's buffing the bird or the shield heals, then I'm not too sold on if it's better or not. So maybe there'll be new builds that use Landscraper or Vineyard, but right now, the double procking is usually where the power lies, because you can double triggers skills and stuff like that. That's kind of the big bonus. Model Ship Deadly now gives adjacent items 20 crit for the fight when you use an item. So Model Ship was this one. Honestly, not the best item, because there were much better ways of gaining consistent shield. And it's not like Yo-Yo, where Yo-Yo is a small item. This is a medium item, so it's kind of a big investment to play, and you have to use adjacent items. So, you know, not super in love with this one. It also didn't scale super high. Like 10 shield is kind of low, and 80 shield is also not like gonna win you. Like, people are getting 100k shield, right? Like, this is not doing it for you. So, you know, it's okay, but I wasn't like super impressed with it. But now, giving adjacent items 20% crit for the fight could be pretty good in an interesting way of using it, as well as like enchanted model ships are pretty good. So there are some opportunities to make this strong. I wasn't super sold with the base version. All right, now your properties now lose value when you lose a fight with stained glass window. This is like the most confusing adjustment here. People aren't playing properties right now because you nerfed properties super hard. Now you're adding a lose condition, where you're losing value if you lose with stained glass window. Seems very weird to me. I don't really personally understand this at all. There has to be some rationale, but I'm not seeing why you'd add this to property builds that are already doing very poorly. So yeah, don't fully understand this last change here. This is the one I scratch my head on, like, why add this? Like, at this point, you've seen property, no one's playing it really, so weird one to me. And then we have some other balance changes. Hammer damage now increases to buffed hammer damage, and then also its upgrade now affects the targets to the left. So hammer is not an item that is easily accessible, but one of the easy ways that you get it is Boiler Room Brawler, and you can see what the hammer does. And when you level up, if you release 3 tools, you will upgrade an item. Now, it was random, but now they're giving you a little bit more control. It upgrades the target to the left, and it's nice because if you can find a way to enchant the hammer, you can now enchant anything else, right? Because when you upgrade it, you also give the enchantment. So it has some pretty cool use cases, and it's just strong if you have tools. Some classes have way more access to tool, but you can always go to the dock and find a tool guaranteed. So it's not too hard to get 3 tools if you really are looking for it heavily. And being able to upgrade an item when you level up is pretty powerful, especially now that you get to control it. So this is a pretty good item. Might be considering worth going into Boiler Room Brawler if you have those 2 options, and you can't beat the stronger version. So yeah, definitely scary to me. I don't know if this needed that buff. I don't think Hammer needed that buff personally. I think Hammer was already very good being able to free upgrade an item of your choosing, or not like randomly of your stash or your inventory. So not sure it needed to be targeted, but they're doing that. We'll see if this gets broken. I personally think it's already broken. I wouldn't give this change here, but hey, I'm not the lead designer or anything like that. So yeah, whatever you're gonna do. Next up, we have Necronomicon. So this is the Lich item. If you can somehow beat Lich and you can get the Necronomicon, when any non-weapon item is used, you poison 4 and you regen 1. Now they're changing it to poison 3, regen 3 per tick. That's still very broken, very good. So if you get this Necronomicon, if you can beat the Lich, get this, you're good. This is a win condition by itself. And your items have their cooldowns increased by 1 second, which is kind of a lot, right? But you can run like non-cooldown specific items or things that start a fight. Like, it's not the end of the world to have that, but yeah, it does matter. But there are a lot of ways like you can technically get around it, so it's not the end of the world. And one of the easy ways to get this is with the lizard shopkeeper that shows any item in the game, right? So you can look through any items in the games, find an Necronomicon, add it to your inventory, and use that to win. So pretty strong, cool item. We'll see if some cool builds get released with it, but it's still pretty strong by itself. Now we have the Dragon's Whelp. Now heals equal to his item's damage. So this one, we're going to look at the Bazaar. We can see all the items as well. Here for the Dragon's Whelp, we can see the tier silver, gold, diamond. We can also see the enchantments. So if you're looking, you're always curious. I've always been curious, like, oh, what are the enchantments for this item? This is a very nice way of figuring that out. So here we can see Restorative was heal 70, which honestly is fine, but like, why? Right? When you see what it does, it deals burn equal to this item's damage. They're like, that's cool. Let's do that for Restore. So now it's heal equal to this item's damage. So I think that's perfectly fine. Usually when you're playing Whelp, you can scale it up. So you can have this heal equal to the item's damage. Pretty cool. Makes sense. I get it. And then we have the Beach Ball, Cannonball, Schematics can now be deadly. So these items could not be deadly before. Why? I don't particularly know. I guess it's because, like, what does deadly do for this? Haste deadly, or it's probably like haste an item and give it crit chance or something like that, right? So same thing here. Adjacent items have extra crit chance, right? It makes sense. And then schematics is like, oh, increase the crit chance of your enemies, you know, or of your core. So when you sell this, give your core plus crit chance equal to its item's value. If you deadly this, you'll probably increase the you can probably increase the core by 50, or you can also just have your items plus crit chance equal to its item's value. If you deadly the schematics, now your items have plus 50 crit chance, which is basically the crow's nest, essentially, right? And we've seen crow's nest, yeah, it's good, but like it's not the end of the game if you give it your items extra crit chance. The nice thing about this is it's not just weapons, right? It's all your items. So schematics plus deadly seems pretty good if you want to do that build. So yeah, there's definitely some value there. So those are some pretty interesting changes for it. And then you have upgraded versions of Scrap Metal, Hammer, and Wrench. Now they will correctly state that they add the enchantments to the item they upgrade instead of providing other effects. So sometimes when you enchant like Hammer or like things that upgrades things. So Scrap Metal, we've seen it upgrades the core. Hammer and Wrench can upgrade an item, right? So now if you have an enchanted version of these, like let's say you have, God forbid, you have freeze enchantment on any of this, right? Now you can just say, hey, I'm going to upgrade my left item, and then boom, it also gets freeze enchant, which is so broken and so busted, but you can do that now, and it will tell you that you can do that. So that's pretty cool. So there's definitely some cool changes you have there. And then you also have these bug fixes that I'm not going to go over because this video is already an hour plus long, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of bug fixes. Happy to see that they're doing that. This is a lot more bug fixes than last patch. So yeah, very cool to see. And I've been talking for a long time. So yeah, a lot of good stuff here. Overall, makes me feel hopeful that they're changing stuff, adding stuff still. and trying to fix some of the weak items that don't see any play. So yeah, pretty happy with the patch. Obviously, balance is still a concern for me, and balance is like, yeah, you need to make sure that lots of events are the option, lots of builds are an option, right? They didn't want a meta, but there is a meta. Like, it's weird, but like it's understandable because that's been the problem with these type of games forever. Like, people figure out what's the best thing, and then they just abuse the best thing. And as long as you have the best thing in the game, there people are going to abuse the best thing. So just you have to have a lot of flexibility. Things are equally balanced, which is hard to do because it's hard to do. So they're working towards it. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the patch notes. Sorry for this is how I do patch notes. If I'm really going depth, it's like an hour long. Sorry. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Blah blah blah. Blah. Whee! Let's end.